Before time was counted, the first traveler stepped from one world to another. No one now living remembers the event or knows when it happened, but at some point it must have. A shadow entered the world, insensate to the laws of physics. Others followed, although it is not clear where they came from, or even if they all came from the same place. What is certain is how they communicate. Only with the living mind can they interact, speaking directly and telepathically. Phonetics was a strange concept to them, but they picked it up quickly, and at some point their language was codified into a speakable form. And while it has influenced other languages over the millennia and also grown to meet the needs for new concepts, its general layout has stayed essentially the exact same through all that time. Demons do not grow old, do not forget syntax, do not seek easier paths through their own backyard. They are the custodians of their language, and they do not change. Shadow Tongue is not the most agglutinative language ever come up with, but it is very morphological. Most stems can be slotted in with almost any affixes, meaning that you could sword somebody and make it a good kill. I only recently got introduced to awkwords. That's one tool that would have been very handy to know about from the beginning. I've learned to input these values into it. Every stem begins with one of these sounds. You might notice that there are only 11 consonants in the language, any of which can stand alone, though most can also stand as part of a cluster. Although a stem will usually be preceded by a prefix, it still cannot begin with a middle sound. Middle sounds can only come between vowels in the stem of a word. Not only are they unable to start or end a word, unless also found on another line, but they also cannot begin the final syllable in a stem. For that task, we grab a sound from beginnings of the end. Ending sounds do not usually appear in stems, but rather are stuck on as suffixes. You might say they are affixed. Y is always a consonant, and I is always a vowel. Y cannot appear in the same syllable as I, and W cannot appear in the same one as O or U. I'm not yet sure whether there is an official writing system to go along with these sounds, as the demons would likely just use whatever alphabet was available, assuming one even was. They're also not especially interested in having a wide base of speakers for their language, since secrecy of motive is one of their great cultural values. If interested in taking a fleshy vessel, a demon will probably teach said vessel enough to understand a contract before signing it, but they don't usually go a step beyond the call of duty. Yes, I am aware that these vowels are basic. No, for this language, I don't particularly care. It's supposed to avoid change, at least in its clerical form. Perhaps, sometime long after the Traitors' War, Shadow Tongue might become a more widely spoken language in the everyday life of some cultures, at which time it would begin to develop local dialects and oddities like other languages. But for now, it's keeping its form. One big reason why Shadow Tongue remains the same is because its primary use is in demonic contracts, in which precise meaning is extremely important. You absolutely do not want to say when you mean ns. It is possible that the language does shift and evolve amongst demons in ways that humans cannot perceive, but for most of its history it is not spoken aloud by a large number of people, remaining instead the pristine language of witchcraft and complex Faustian bargains. It enjoys an especially sour reputation amongst those who know of it, with non-speakers sometimes experiencing a sort of Lovecraftian dread upon hearing it, and some mages said to become addicted to its use until even their thoughts employ no other language. Such is, of course, mere conjecture. This language generally follows a verb-object-subject word order, though its case endings make this technically optional. Adjectives and adverbs follow and agree with the words they modify, and prepositions precede them as the name implies. Possessees follow their possessor. Both nouns and verbs start with a prefix. That of the noun tells us about its definition and number, and is always comprised of a beginning sound and a vowel. This is followed by the stem, which is then followed by a suffix telling us about its case and gender. The grammatical genders of Shadow Tongue are rational beings, which includes demons and humans, irrational beings, which includes rocks and humans, absentees, which are absent regardless what case they would otherwise belong to, places, which refer to points affixed either in space or to a planetary position, patterns, like languages and plot structures, deviations, like breaks in bridges and turning points in history, and time periods, like the amount of time you've spent watching this video so far, as opposed to the amount left in it. There are 9 noun cases. Progressive means that the noun is either the goal or the process of the verb. Ablative means that the noun results from the verb, although that may not be actual ablative. I don't think... I know Latin has ablative, and I think it works a little different, so this is not true ablative. It's just, I used it because I don't know what that's called. It's a noun that results from the verb, and I'm calling it ablative. You can tell me in the comments section why I'm wrong, and that's okay. I don't know everything, I'm not claiming to, I'm still very green at this. Accusative means it's the direct object. Instrumental means the noun is used to accomplish the verb. Dative is the direct object, and nominative is the subject. There are 3 pretensive cases, each marking the noun as the property of or being related to one of the objects or the subject. Lastly, every noun has an optional power level, denoting how the speaker sees it or the relationship it shares with other nouns. Power levels are only denoted by ending sounds. If that particular noun's power level is unimportant to the sentence, none is used. Every verb starts with a vowel sound for their suffix, letting us know its voice. The standard active and passive are available, as are middle, mutual, and negative. The verb's suffix luxuriates in informing the hearer what kind of sentence they are hearing or how the imparted information was given to them. Adverbs don't usually take a prefix unless negative to describe an aspect that the verb does not have. This is the type of word they use to talk about time, with a few monosyllabic adverbs being buildable like Lego blocks. Kliku, I will never. These are the conjunctions I've come up with so far. For or because. Zogt. And then. Zwork. And thus. Quors. But. Zalch. Or. Zal. If. Trel. Every part of this language is a work in process. I've had several false starts on it, and this iteration is very young. That's why there currently is so little vocabulary for it. I have, however, agonized over 2 compound sample sentences for you. Ewanyank waiviaktewai zaikuve zaizenterio zalch ausentes uhuits waikuvex waiviakte lail tu lail. It is possible to practice every faith without harming anybody, but it is impossible to believe any faith without harming exactly one. Ezetnietz zailauchlai cerkelai, quors erketzkrit Zeyorzo zezzo zaerkella zulla. That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die. The more I practice building languages, the more I realize how bad I am at it. But hey, it's fun and it gives the languages a reason to evolve when they eventually do. I'm happy.